Let's talk about something that most pastors don't like to talk about, being tired, but not physically tired, emotionally tired. You're showing up on Sundays and you're making decisions and managing people, but deep down you are worn out. Or maybe you'd say you're just worn thin. You're not leading with joy anymore for sure, and feels like you're barely surviving. This is what I like to call leadership fatigue. And if you don't deal with it, it won't just make you tired or keep you tired. It will take your passion. It'll rob your focus and eventually even maybe take your calling. What does leadership fatigue look like? If any of this resonates, you probably have experienced it or maybe are right now. Maybe you avoid people that you used to enjoy being around, or you still show up around them, but you definitely don't feel like you used to. Maybe you dread making decisions, but not just big organizational wide ones. You dread even small decisions. You feel like everything is reactive for you. It's not proactive. It's not really intentional or strategic like it used to be. For so many pastors, that's what the pandemic did to us. We were living in reaction mode. I was a lead pastor during that time. I spent 13 years leading a church, and I was a lead pastor during all that. I mean, I knew, like you did, if you led during that, you were making decisions in a moment that you were almost certain would not be valid tomorrow, but you also had to make them today. I mean, everything was so reactive, and it's hard to get out of that mode. Maybe you're still living in a bit of a reactionary space. Or maybe you wonder, what if I just stopped? Like what if I just stepped down? What if I just did something else? Every once in a while, when I was leading at Woodstock City Church, I would see the UPS driver drive by and think, man, that looks like a really good job. I mean, brown isn't my favorite color, but that guy probably just picks up stuff, drops it off, goes home. You definitely don't take your work with you. It's probably illegal to do that. It seems like a pretty great job. If you have felt, or especially if you are feeling any of that stuff, it's not a failure. It's just emotional depletion. That's what fatigue does to you. And it doesn't mean that you're unfit. It just means that you're probably doing too much for too long without enough margin, rest, and probably not enough support. I mean, I hate to say it, but it probably just means that you're human. How do you get out of this? Like, how do you get out of this spin cycle of leadership pressure, of emotional fatigue? Well, let me give you just a handful of things, five very quick, specific things that you can do. The first one that could help is just name it. Oftentimes, we aren't even really sure where that pressure is coming from. We don't know why we're feeling what we're feeling. So don't minimize it, name it. Because again, you can't fix something that you haven't addressed. And one of the things that I did on my website, gavinadams.com, I created a pressure inventory. And the reason I created it is because after evaluating my 20 years of ministry, and then 13 of those being in a direct pastoral leadership, and then, working with churches all over the world actually right now and coaching pastors and ministry leaders, I just found there were these 7 deadly pressures that every pastor was facing on some level. I bet you're facing all of them, but maybe not to the same degree. I created that pressure inventory so that people like you could figure out what pressures you were feeling to what extent, so that way you could begin to work on them directly. So that's one, you got to name the pressure. Number two, this is kind of complicated, but it's very helpful. If you're feeling that kind of fatigue, it's important to shorten your decision loops, meaning that you simplify the things that are draining you. You can delegate some decisions if that's helpful, or you can just take some of these big decisions and make them small incremental steps of decisions that eventually lead to something bigger. But if you're feeling overwhelmed, the big decisions definitely don't help. So make those decision loops a little smaller. The third thing, you should talk to somebody who understands, who gets it, and not just someone who tells you that you need to rest more. That's not that helpful. You don't just need to rest. We'll talk about that here in a minute, but you need something more than that. If you can find somebody who has been in your role before, not your specific role, but who has been maybe a pastor, a ministry leader, who has been an elder, somebody who's a little bit wiser, maybe, someone like that could be phenomenally helpful for you. I think almost every church I work with and have worked with now for 4 years in my kind of coaching practice, every one of them began because there was a pressure. They didn't call it that, but it was they needed some, time off on Sunday. They wanted a great, maybe a sermon on a Sunday. They invited me in to preach. I do a lot of that. They invited me in to work on discipleship pathways or coaching their communicators. I mean, there's so many different things that I help churches with, and it's all leadership strategy. But inevitably, the pastor and I end up sitting down because I meet with these, men and women twice a month, and then I am in person quarterly. And so we're sitting down and talking, and inevitably, the conversation turns towards some of these things. Not strategy, not organizational leadership, not theology. I mean, we do all that too. But we often end up talking about life and fatigue and how hard this job is and how I navigated it and what I learned during my time. And so find somebody who can do that with you. The fourth thing you need to do is you got to rebuild some joy. And you do that by finding those life-giving rhythms in your life. As I said, I have been in leadership for a long time, in ministry leadership. And during my lead pastor season, especially, the pressure was huge. I mean, we was very lucky to get to be a part of this, but I became a lead pastor of a church that had a couple hundred people and $400 in the bank. And then over 8 years' time, we grew to 8,000 people and we had about a $9 million budget. And then we're part of North Point and we're a campus and all just so much complication in this. And it was robbing my joy trying to keep up and lead at that level and especially scaling at that pace. It almost feels impossible. I was barely surviving. And so I took a month away. I was very lucky. I know a lot of people can't do that. It's not even possible. I was very lucky to get to do that. But one of the things I did is did a life plan. I had a person who I met with and did a 2-day life plan with. And one of the things out of the life plan was it helped me think. It's kind of like a car dashboard with all the gauges on it. It helped me kind of put some gauges on my life dashboard, and I could sense when they were getting half full so that I could go back and refill them. So I began to understand what my life giving rhythms are. I learned things like reading is actually something that fills me up. It doesn't drain me. That may be true for you too. Learning new things does that for me. I'm a little weird like that, but podcasts that are interesting around brain science or things like that are actually give me energy. I love going to the gym. I used to not really love that, but when I found that internal kind of competition to push myself and try to get a little stronger every time I go, 1% better every time, man, it just fuels me. Not to mention it's good for you just physically, right? So yours are going to be different, but you got to find those life-giving rhythms because that's what allows you to experience joy again. And here's the last one. And I kind of mentioned this earlier, but you have to recover. You cannot just rest. Sleep helps, no doubt. But there is a deeper healing that is necessary. So it's okay to take a nap, and you probably need to do more of that. But how can you recover? That life dashboard I mentioned earlier, that is certainly maybe a part of that. But please don't think a week at the beach is going to solve this for you. It's not. You're probably going to take half the week to unwind, and then the next half winding back up to get ready to walk right back into the bad habits and rhythms that you have already. So have somebody work with you on what recovery looks like. If you're ready to kind of stop surviving and start leading with clarity again, I'd love to help if that would be helpful for you. A couple of things that I do. I've got free resources at gavinadams.com that may help, but I also offer these monthly pressure valve sessions. They're free. You can join us for free. We take one big idea, one pressure, and we talk about one strategy to alleviate it each month. So you can learn more about that, of course, at that gavinadams.com at that site. Also, I mentioned that pressure inventory. If you can name it, you can begin to work on it. And that inventory may help you do that as well. I just want to help you reduce that pressure because I want to see you leading boldly again.